Hey, I'm Steph. I'm a motivator, creator, small business owner, and educator. I am a lover of all things health, spirituality, inspiration, and business. These are just a few words to describe me, along with passion, grit, and resiliency. Regardless of what I'm up to, I am soul-driven to create a purpose-filled life and find the advantages in adversity, all while keeping a smile on my face.
Soul Driven with Steph is a podcast that will fill up your cup and leave you feeling empowered, inspired, and on fire as you listen to interviews and stories of other soul-driven and strong women that have overcome against all odds. This podcast was a calling on Steph's soul to serve, connect, and share stories of struggles and successes, all to create a community so that you know you're never alone. Grab a cup of coffee, get ready to learn, laugh, and leave with wisdom and strategies to connect to your soul and get back in the driver's seat of your life today. Here's Steph.
Welcome back to another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. I am very excited about our conversation today with our guest who is joining us from Wisconsin in Oconomowoc. So please welcome to the podcast, Kenzie Groh.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to have this conversation because Kenzie and I just met about a month ago at the Powerhouse Women event in Arizona. And we connected, of course, over the fact that we are Wisconsinites and women in business. And well, we actually met at the table event for Haley Westfall. And then, we were both there for a Powerhouse Women event. So very cool to make connections with other Midwesterners when you're in Arizona. But I wanted to follow up with Kenzie because we had such a great connection and I just love what she's doing. And I want to learn more about it and share it with all of our listeners. So Kenzie, tell us your origin story of how you got into entrepreneurship and what you're doing today.
Yes. Okay. One of my favorite stories to tell. So I always tell people never saw myself being an entrepreneur. Like I always thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder, be the CEO, which I get to be the CEO of my own business now, but I always thought I was going to work for someone else and climb the corporate ladder. So I went to school at UW-Eau Claire for marketing. I loved it. I loved everything I learned. And as soon as I graduated, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he was in the military and he was stationed out in California. I had always wanted to live in California. So I thought, you know what? If I get a job in Wisconsin, I'm going to stay. So I'm just going to pack up my car. I'm going to move out there and I'm going to figure it out. And so he came home, we packed up my car, we drove across the country, and it took a little while, but I got my first corporate job in a large format printing company as a project manager. And the company just ended up being really toxic. There wasn't a lot of work-life balance. I had been there for about a year and just physically, mentally, emotionally really lost myself. Like going from college to a full-time employee, a job that was very demanding. I did not know what work-life balance was and just really threw myself into the job and lost myself and found myself really burnt out. It was kind of one of those jobs where like you cry going to work, you cry going home. And I just had this epiphany one day. I was like sitting in the lunchroom, I'm eating this like pathetic salad that I made and I'm just eating and I'm like, this is not what my life is supposed to be. I don't want to do this. I don't want to live my life like this. I thought it was going to be way more fun. Like, I just can't do it. And so I started looking for other corporate jobs, but it really started with my own journey back to my health and finding myself again. And so that started with me working out and eating healthier. And I started to feel so good that I thought, if I struggle with this, there has to be other women that are struggling too. And so I became a health coach and a personal trainer. At this point, I had gotten a new corporate job at a tech startup in management and started training people before I would go to my corporate job. So getting up at like 4 a.m., training people. And as I'm training people, it was mostly women. There was just this like missing piece because people are telling me, I want to change my habits. I want to be healthier. I want to be more confident. I want to show up differently, but then they weren't doing it. And so at this point, I had no clue what that was, but I ended up going to a conference for entrepreneurs. It was like my first conference. And they brought this guy on stage and he's talking about NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. Fancy way of saying how our brains are wired, how we create our thoughts, our beliefs, and our habits. And instantly I was like, yeah, this is the missing piece. Like, this is what my clients need. And so I ended up, through a connection, finding a course that taught about NLP, and over years got certified in NLP, life and mindset coaching, clinical hypnotherapy, somatic breathwork, tapping, and just fell in love with what it could do for my life, for other people's lives. And so I was starting to coach more in the life coaching realm. And I knew eventually I wanted to do my business full time, but like, you're collecting a cushy corporate paycheck, you're comfortable, you got the limiting beliefs. And so I just kept staying and staying and staying. And then in January of 2020, got called in out of the blue and got laid off. And I always tell people, I think it's important to acknowledge, like, I wasn't just like, oh, okay, whatever. I definitely threw what I call like a pity party. I felt like the world was ending. I didn't know what I was going to do. I started looking for corporate jobs. Nothing really resonated with me. And my husband was like, you've been wanting to do your business full time. Like, you should just do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're right, which was scary. But so I started working towards running my business full time. And then in July of 2020, we decided to move back to Wisconsin. My husband was in school. So I've been running my business full time ever since then. But it's in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? But I always tell people now I can look back and be like, everything lined up exactly how it was supposed to. And I think if the universe wouldn't have like laid me off, pushed me off the cliff, I would probably still just be doing something that wasn't super fulfilling. And so I'm always really grateful for where my journey has led.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And it's so interesting, like just hearing your origin story, because like I can resonate with the piece of finding yourself in health and wellness. I did that in my early 20s, became a trainer, started teaching classes, saw a lot of the same things in the women that I was trying to help. Is, a lot of people would come to fitness for the external and stay for the internal. And that's when it gets really juicy, right? So we're going to
that's
get
the
more
good stuff.
yeah, we're going to get more into that on this call today, but I just love hearing people's journeys, because you're 100% right that in the moment, we don't understand it. We maybe fight it. It's upsetting. We don't know why something is happening the way that it is. And then we look back and see how it was leading us exactly to where we are meant to be. And I feel like 2020 was such a pivotal year for so many people. Like, it's just crazy, because it was very much a pivotal year for me as well. And just really opened so many eyes to what do we really want? And are we pursuing that? And how are we going to show up for the version of ourselves that we want to be? So I love that you took your leap into your business. What advice would you give to people maybe in that position now that you were in, trying to figure out, do I go all in on this? What does that look like? Do I believe in myself?
Yeah, good question. I would say, like, feel the fear and do it anyways, because our subconscious minds and our bodies like to be comfortable, and we like to do what we know. And so anytime we try to step out of that, like, our brain is trying to keep us safe, but really it's like self-sabotage. It's holding us back. And
Yeah.
so if you can just kind of sit with it, and like when your body's freaking out, being like, don't do it, it's scary. No, no, no. If you can sit with it and be like, okay, is this fear because it's unknown, or is it fear because I'm actually not safe? Like, I'm going to get hit by a car or something, And if you can reason with yourself and start to say, like, okay, yeah, this is uncomfortable. This is new to me. This is, something I've never done before, but I'm still going to do it. I just think it's so important to acknowledge, like, it is going to feel scary and uncomfortable. And you can still do it, you know? And a lot of people will, as soon as they feel that, they kind of pull back. And that's why we don't live a life that we want to live. And so for me, it was like in that moment when my husband's telling me, like, do your business, like, don't go back to corporate. I was terrified. Of course, I was so uncomfortable. I was so scared. I was so nervous, but I just knew that I had to follow my gut and do it. So I think it's just important to acknowledge that both can exist and you can still face that fear and that uncomfortableness and do it still.
Yes, and it is our brain's biological response to keep us safe is
Mhm.
to avoid change and
Yeah.
to stay in comfortability. And we know that's not how we grow. It's not how we evolve. It's not what brings us true happiness most of the time is staying in that zone where we are comfortable. So let's talk a little bit about mindset coaching because some people might not understand what does that mean, mindset
Mhm.
coaching? What does it look like? And how do you help your clients through mindset coaching get unstuck and
Mhm.
ultimately find the lifestyle that they want to live?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start from the beginning where we talk about the mind because we don't learn this in school. And I really wish we would. Like, I wish everyone knew how powerful our brains are and that we have the choice to change them. But when you're born, when you're a baby or you have a baby, baby has no thoughts, beliefs, nothing. They want to sleep, they want to eat, and they want to go to the bathroom. And those are their survival techniques. But as their brain starts to form and as they take in the world around them, and they start to see, oh, mom and dad are kissing. Like kissing means love, or a hug means love, or somebody's yelling. That means they're angry. We start to take in everything around us and we give it meaning. And, we take in the beliefs too. So I would say if someone told you your whole life, like, no, you're not smart enough, you can't do that, you're going to go through your whole life holding yourself back because your brain believes that you're not smart enough. It's just your wiring. We can't avoid it. And so when we can understand, like, oh, those beliefs aren't mine, those thoughts aren't mine, those habits aren't mine, they were given to me by the world, my parents, my teachers, social media, TV, whatever it is, I can change them. And so when we can understand that, then we can start to say, oh, like I am smart enough. I've never, unfortunately, my mom told me that I wasn't, but I am. And so when we can understand that that's how our thoughts, beliefs, and habits are formed, then as an adult, we know that we have the power to change them. So through NLP, clinical hypnotherapy, we do like parts work, which is part of NLP. We can start to say, what's the belief that's holding you back, that's keeping you stuck, that's causing you to self sabotage? And we can literally start to rewire your brain. So when something happens, let's say as a child, um, let's say you see your parents hug, but for whatever meaning you give it, like that means people are mad when you see them hug. Well, we most know, and it's hugging, it means it's love or care, or compassion. Well, we can start to rewire that as an adult to say, like, well, actually, a hug shows love. We can start to rewire how our brain connects those dots for you and processes information. And so typically when a client comes to me, I'm going to be honest, they're not saying like, I need to rewire my brain, right? But they are saying to me, I feel stuck. I feel overwhelmed. I know I'm self sabotaging. I never feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like I'm worthy of the job. Don't feel like I'm worthy of the life that I want. We know that's because of the wiring. And so we can use a variety of tools to start to change those beliefs.
Yes, I love it. So tell us about some of the tools that you utilize in your either one-on-one or group settings to kind of get to the root cause of a lot
Mhm.
of these issues and places that we feel stuck.
Yes, so lots of tools. Some of my favorites I'll just list off, and where I start people with is the first is like noticing the limiting beliefs because I think it's really
Mm.
important. We can subconsciously, and if people don't know, subconscious brain, it holds 95% of our thoughts, beliefs, habits, actions. So it's controlling, it's making a lot of things happen that we don't even know. So I think it's important that we start to become conscious of like our thoughts, beliefs, patterns, and habits. And so I really like to start with just saying, what are the beliefs that you're telling yourself? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. My body doesn't look the way I want it to. What are the beliefs? And then what do you want the beliefs to be instead? And I tell people, I want you to go throughout your day. And as you notice yourself talking negatively, I want you to pause and I want you to start to correct yourself. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy, but it's really important that we become conscious of those thoughts. So that's kind of like the first place I start of just saying, let's just start to recognize what you're doing. And a lot of times when people write down those beliefs, they're like, wow, I'm really mean to myself. Like I would never talk to someone else this way. Why am I talking to myself this way? So it's one, just important to get that down on paper. And then some of the other tools we start to use, I love to do like inner child hypnosis. So we talk about that inner child, little you, the part of you that whether you had the best childhood in the world or the worst childhood or somewhere in between, there's going to be a little part of you that didn't get something they needed. I always kind of give the example like you run in the room, Mom, I cut my finger. I need a Band-Aid. And she's in the middle of washing the dishes. You're fine. You're fine. Just go away. You're fine. Oh, Mom doesn't love me. Mom doesn't care. We know that's not true, but she was just busy, right? And so we go to that little inner child and we start to heal her and we say, well, what did you not get as a child that you need as an adult? And what's cool is you realize you get to parent yourself now. So I'm not going to go to my mom and ask her to do what she didn't do, but I can say like, oh, like I'm feeling upset in this moment. Why is that? And how can I parent myself through it and talk myself through it, which is super useful. And then even just like that playful aspect as adults, we lose like some of that joy and that passion. So I always ask my clients, what did you like to do as a kid? Blow bubbles, play hopscotch, ride your bike, just like what are some of those things that brought you joy and can you bring those back into your life now? Because as kids, we're just so innocent and so playful and we need to bring some of that back in. So inner child kind of is twofold there. Then we also talk about your highest self, which is like one of my favorite things to talk about because people don't realize that you get to build the highest, best version of yourself. So I always ask people, if you were showing up in your life exactly how you desired, exactly as you wanted, you're being the person that you wanted to be, your life looked how you wanted it to look, what would it look like? And sometimes if anybody's listening to this and they want to write that out, like we go through be, do, have. Who are you being? What are you doing? What do you have in your life? And write it out as if it's already happened because our subconscious mind does not know the difference between something that happened and something that we're saying actually happened. So if we're saying, it has to be a little bit believable, but if we're saying I'm a millionaire, your brain's like, oh, you are? Okay, like let's start to work with that. And so if you're saying I am the person that gets up every day and runs a mile, your brain is like, oh, okay, I can start to buy into that. I can start to make that happen. And so we want to start to make that highest, best version of yourself and envision yourself as her. And your brain will start to wire to make that happen for you. So highest self is like one of my favorite tools, one of my favorite things to do for hypnosis and processes to walk through. We also talk about walking through limiting beliefs. We do time techniques for that. So that is, what is your belief? Where does it stem from? Who gave it to you? And what do you want it to be instead? And then I also use a lot of somatic tools. So when we talk about somatic, that's the body. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score that I recommend to like everybody. Have you read it?
I haven't, but I heard amazing things.
Yes. I'm like, read it. Like if you hear about somatic, it piques your interest, like go read that book. But a lot of people think that we hold all of our memories and all of our emotions in our minds, but actually we hold majority of them in our body. And so it's kind of just like as a kid, even an adult, when you want to cry and someone's like, don't cry, you're fine, you're fine. Well, actually, that's not really doing us any good because we're just shoving stuff down and we get to a point where it builds and it builds and we are not emotionally intelligent. We can't process things. We're holding ourselves back. We're self-sabotaging because we're holding it in our body. And so we use a lot of like parts work, breath work to move that energy out of the body. I will tell people, if you've never done breath work before, somatic breath work, do it, because it's truly this like walk on water feeling after you do it, and you just feel so much lighter. And if I tell everyone, like, if there's one tool you're going to do, it's breath work, because it is truly life changing. So if I'm going to sum that up and like put a bow on it, it's a lot of, I take a holistic approach. So it's mind, body, and soul. And I think that's where we miss the mark a lot of times. We're just working mind, we're just working body, we're just talking strategy and what do I need to post and what do I need to, how many people do I need to reach out to and who do I need to network with, when really we need to bring all three together to become like the whole version of ourselves that we want to be.
Oh, so good. So many good tools there that we can tap into and just figure out what do you need for whatever stage that you're at and what you're trying to overcome. But I loved just the variety. Like you said, the holistic approach is so important. Mind, body, soul has always been my mentality as well. I have a sign above my window that says that. And I just know that that is truly where we find actual healing too.
Yeah.
By not just taking, one piece of the puzzle. I was thinking as you're talking through the inner child work, we maybe have never heard of this before, but something that helped me, even coming out of my season of struggle in my 20s, was doing this healing work on my younger self. So even if it's not like, you don't have to picture yourself as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. It could be you in your teen years or maybe your 20s, of just that young version of yourself that maybe didn't know better or got themselves into a situation that you didn't want to be in. So I think just having that awareness that it can be any version of your younger self that you need to heal.
Yes, absolutely. And I always say, like, just finding compassion for her. I don't know about you, but like you said, kind of your teenage self. Like sometimes when I'm being hard on myself or worrying about my business, I kind of picture like little me, whether it's little you, teenage you, 20-year-old you. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I love her so much. Like just finding compassion for that younger version of yourself is very powerful.
Totally. Yes. And I wrote down be, do, have. I think that is another tool that we can use when we are trying to manifest and create that life we desire. So to kind of go off of that, the ultimate goal through this mindset work, which ultimately ends up being more than mind, it's body and spirit too.
Yep.
We're trying to create that desired life of figuring out what does that look like? What does that feel like? What are some tips and tools that you could share for manifesting? Kind of maybe once you do some of the healing work, then you can step into that frame of mind of, okay, what do I truly want?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is energy attracts energy, right? So the energy we put out is the energy that we bring back in. So I just think I give this example more recently because it's something I was doing where we just had this like spout in our lives where things just felt like they were going wrong. My entire windshield cracked, our water heater broke, we had something else happen. And I said to my husband, I was like, it's always something. It's always something. And in that moment, I caught myself because that's also just like a limiting belief. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, I need to stop saying that, because if I put that energy out that it's always something, then it is always going to be something. And so I stopped saying that. And what was my new phrase? It is what it is, right? Because it already happened. It's out of my control. Let's just handle it, problem solve it, and move on. And as soon as I change, like, it is what it is. This happens. Let's problem solve it. Let's move through it. It changed. Things stopped happening. Bad things stopped happening. And so I give that example because truly the energy that we are putting out is what we get back. And so when we talk about manifesting, I think sometimes people are like, it just seems like such a far out concept, but it's really that you bring in what you're attracting. And so that's why I like to talk about that bead you have with manifesting, because the more we can visualize it and act as if we already have it, the universe is like, oh, you like bringing in clients? That's exciting to you. Oh, you like these nice things. The more you can put out that energy of like, this is what I love, the more you will get it back. And a lot of that goes along with mindset, like you said. So when we start to do the healing work, we start to shift that we think more positively rather than negatively. So what I want to point out there is sometimes people have a fear of like, oh, I thought something negative, something bad is going to happen. Probably not, right? But if we continuously all day long are thinking about, well, this is what's going to happen, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, then yes, that's the energy you're going to attract. But just having that thought here and there is not going to cause all negative in your life. So the first couple of steps I like to walk people through with manifesting is get really clear about what you want. What do you want in your life? What are you calling in? The second step is I like to talk them through like, what are the beliefs you have that are going to keep you from getting that? So if you're calling in $10,000, but your belief is that you're not capable of making money, well, then it's going to be really hard to bring in that $10,000. So get clear, work through your limiting beliefs, and then act as if you already have it. Embody the type of person that would make $10,000 a month. Embody the type of person that is good at making connections. Embody the type of person that does drive the car that you want to drive. We have to act as if we already have those things. And then the final step, which is sometimes a little hard, is trust. And so often we try to force things. We're like holding on with this like death grip of trying to make things happen. And a lot of times we have to put it out into the universe and then say like, okay, I trust that this is going to happen for me. And I know it's all going to turn out the way it's supposed to. And sometimes the universe gives us what we really need, not what we thought we needed. And so just like me, like getting laid off from my job, I wasn't manifesting getting laid off from my job, but I was manifesting working for myself. And so it just happened to be get laid off and have to figure that out. So trusting the process and knowing that everything is always working out for your greater good.
1000%. Yes. I think we all have instances where something came to us, we got a result we wanted, but it was not at all how we thought it was going to manifest. So,
Yeah.
being open to the possibilities and surrender, I think you nailed it, is the key. And it's the hardest part of it.
So hard.
And like, I don't know, we'll get into this a little bit too, but like just being in the state of pregnancy, like surrender has become my like mantra whenever something feels hard, or there's just so much surrender that comes with stepping into motherhood and having just not as much control over your body and what's coming with your life and then your baby and all of those things. So it really has been a season of teaching surrender.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's like such a good point is stepping into motherhood. I'm like, first trimester, if you're sick or you're tired, I feel like everyone's tired, but it just taught me, I'm like, I'm not in control. And I think that maybe that is your body's way of saying like, you need to slow down because your life is about to slow down in the most beautiful way possible. But I think surrender is so important because I have had to, where normally I'm waking up every day and I'm at my computer and I'm crushing stuff. Like for 3 months, I was like, I'm not moving off the couch. And so it is truly surrender. And I think there's such a beautiful lesson in that.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the, physical experience of surrendering, and there's so much that we can take from that. Absolutely. So, expecting mom to expecting mom, first time for both of us, both having girls. I'm so excited for you. What are you looking forward to most in that season?
Ooh, good question. Um, Honestly, I feel like I am kind of touching on the last point. I am just like excited to slow down, to like I'm having a girl, so like spend just time with her, like snuggle with her. Just like I think it's just, which you probably feel this too, like I can just feel myself stepping into this new stage of life. Like I can feel this huge shift happening in my business and in myself. And so I'm actually just really excited to go through that and see how my business evolves being a mom, because I do help so many moms. And like business wise, that's what I'm excited for. And then just personally, just all the snuggles and slowing down and that family time.
Yeah, absolutely. I can feel that so much too. And
Yeah.
just excited to see like what new perspectives it brings me to my business as well as my life, becoming a mom in that season. And I think it's really forced me to I mean, even just planning my maternity leave, like take such a different approach to my business of like bringing in support, asking for help more, like setting up the systems, all the things that I've needed to do, and it's forced me to do it.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
looking forward to seeing like how that, even coming out of my maternity leave, will just allow for more space in my life to, not be in my business all the time. So
Yeah.
it's been really good for that. You also focus on community, and
Yes.
I know that healing and health and wellness is so much more elevated in community versus isolating ourselves. There's
Yeah.
obviously inner work that we have to do on our own. But what kind of role does community play in, maybe with the clients that you work with, in helping them heal and find that best self?
Yeah. I would say that it can be so lonely as just a woman in general. I know, like, even just me stepping into motherhood, I felt like, oh, like, this is kind of lonely. Like, I don't know. Oh, now I do, but I'm like, I didn't know anybody else who was pregnant and going through the transition. And, it just, I think as a woman, sometimes we feel like we're on this like island alone. And for me, I mean, my number one mission has always been to like empower women to live this like beautiful life, a life that feels good to them, a life where they feel like they're showing up. And I think that can be so powerful in community, to find women that are like, I see you, I get you, I hear you. And so I just created the Sacred Circle. It's a community for women to come in and do the healing work. We do breath work, hypnosis, highest self. And then there's also like a channel for them to connect outside of there and just be able to say, like, guys, I'm struggling, or hey, I have a win. I really want to like celebrate it and tell someone and be celebrated. And I have just seen so much power in community when women come together, feel supported, support each other. And I can truly say in my own life and business, like once I've found community, it's changed everything for me to not feel so alone, whether it's business or personal.
Yeah. And I've been seeing just like your posts about the Sacred Circle, and I'm like, oh, that looks so good. I
It
wish
is.
I
It's
was
pretty
closer to you because I'm
good.
totally interested in doing all of those things. It's awesome. Yes. So, what, how do you continue to grow? Like, obviously, growth mindset is huge for you. We met at some networking events, a
Mhm.
conference. What does it look like for you to grow personally and professionally?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that's such a, because I'm becoming a mom, I'm like, my life looks, I just see my business looking so different than it does now. But for me, the growth is like I shouldn't say constantly, consistently working on myself. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by like, I need to do a meditation every day and I need to work out and I need to do this and I need to journal. And it's like, take a breath. It's important to go inward and reflect. And so for me, that just looks like making sure I'm doing a little bit of self care every day. I always tell people at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, you should be able to answer, what's one thing I did for myself today?
Mm,
And that could be it could be as simple as, I finished my cup of coffee before it got cold and I had 10 minutes on the couch to look out the window. It could be I went and got a massage. It could be I went for a 10-minute walk. could be anything. But for me, that's really important, is that every day I just do something that fills up my cup a little bit or makes me feel really good. And then professionally growing, right now, I'm in a stage of where it's just a lot of networking, meeting other like-minded women, meeting women that are in the same stage of life and business as me. Really just coming back to that importance of community. I've felt like that's really what I'm desiring in my life. And so that, again, is putting myself in situations where maybe sometimes it is a little uncomfortable or makes you a little nervous, but really just showing up and putting myself out there. Because when I do that is when I make like the most beautiful connections.
Yeah, I love that. I would say very similar to what I've been focusing on as well. And I don't know about you, but I feel like being pregnant has made me even more focused on self care, like every day.
Yep.
I feel like if I don't think about myself, I forget that I have this baby inside me. And so
Yep.
she's gonna be kicking me all the time, and now I can't forget about it. Like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, right there. But it just like really has elevated that sense of like, yeah, what did I do for myself today that therefore then took care of my baby? And I
Mhm.
hope that continues. It's going to be something I have to intentionally continue once this baby is not inside me.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that has become so important. Like even on days where I'm like busy and working and, doing all the things, like whether it's in the morning or the evening, just like 10 minutes to like
Mhm.
reconnect to my body and my baby. So that's been huge. And then, yeah, networking, like that's how we met.
Yeah.
And I have met so many other amazing women in business because of just pushing my comfort zone, going to events where I didn't really know anyone, and just getting in the rooms with the right people
Yeah.
allows you that growth and those connections that I think we're all desiring.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you most proud of about yourself?
Ooh, what am I most proud of about myself? That's a good one. I would say like what's coming to mind first is that I just continuously show up. And life gets really hard sometimes, whether that's personal, business, family, it's just life. And definitely I take time for myself when I need it, but like get knocked down in business, reevaluate, show up. Show up for my family, show up for myself, show up for my husband. Like you said, show up for this baby in this time of life. Like I just show up. And that is really important to me. I've seen the importance of that in personal and professional. And is something that I want to make sure I continue to do, because as we have this little girl and more children, just showing up for them too, I think is really important. And also just shows like that consistent of like follow through, you get knocked down, you get back up, you keep going.
Yeah, resilience. It's
Yes.
huge. I love
Yes.
that. And I just know what a difference it makes in continuing to show up, like you said, consistently. Like even when you're not feeling it, even when you have self doubts, even when you've experienced failures, like just continuing to show up and
Hmm.
learn from it and move forward in the best way that we can. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My final question
Yes.
is, what drives your soul today? What do you get up for
Ooh.
each morning?
Yeah. I would say I want to say like it's been consistently throughout my whole business, but it's even more now that I'm becoming a mom, is so often, especially as women, we just doubt ourselves and we're told we have to look a certain way and act a certain way and life has to look a certain way and we have to have a certain job and on and on and on. And it really drives me to show women that you can live any life you want. You can change your life at any time. You can change your beliefs, your thoughts, your habits. And so that consistently drives me, as like I see my clients and just my friends and family as like pouring into them, and they kind of see like, oh, I can do this. I can make that happen. I am super powerful. I am so smart. As I see that, that just drives me to like continue my business and to continue, creating tools that show women how truly powerful they are.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation of just learning more about how we can dig into our mindset, healing, showing up as our best self, and just continuing to push the envelope and get uncomfortable, which is what growth is all about.
Yes,
So
it is.
tell us, Kenzie, where we can continue to follow you or find more information about what you do.
Yes, so you can mostly find me on Instagram at Kenzie Groh, KenzGroh. And on my website, you can find my courses, my coaching, all of those types of things. And that is just kenzigrohcoaching.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time, keep following what drives your soul. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it out with someone else who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you know when new episodes drop. And until next time, be sure to take care of your mind, your body, and your soul.